So I want to pull this up for you, and look, just listen to the man himself and the way that he said it. But let's give some context here before we go full on into this. Okay, so a couple of different things going on here. Number one, Bernthal was very vocal about how the original version of Daredevil Born Again, he was not going to come back for it. He said it in interviews. He said it a lot to fans, and I remember there was this poor girl named Cam, I think was her name. We talked about her a couple of weeks ago. So this poor girl, in October of last year, met Bernthal at a Comic-Con. And she reported on Twitter what Bernthal had told her. And what Bernthal had told her was that the original version of the show was just so outside of the character of Frank that he was not going to do it. And a bunch of people like Daniel RPK and Big Screen Leaks and Skylar Schuler and the usual band of toxic positive fuckfaces actually led the charge to harass this poor girl online. And the reason they did this is because they don't want anything outside of what their strict and weirdo political lensing thinks should be allowed for these characters. Okay? And then Bernthal himself confirmed that this year, as the show was going on. So Cam was always right, and all of these fuckfaces were always wrong. Okay. Well, fast forward to the finale of the show. And in the finale of the show, of course, Frank confronts some of the corrupt cops, the fanboys that had his logo on it. Now, this is a big political thing for whatever reason. A lot of military people, blue-collar workers, cops, firemen, you know, people that serve, they find a kinship with the Frank Castle character. And they like to put the Frank Castle skull on their body armor or their shirts or on the back of their pickup trucks or whatever. This, that, second, and the third. And a bunch of limp dick fuck faces have not only have a problem with that, which frankly, like, you're allowed to have a problem with that. But if you think your problem with that entitles you to change the dynamic of the character, to sort of preach or control what it is according to your ideologies, then you're gross. So the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because in the finale of the show, Frank does encounter these police officers and he kills a lot of these cops. And you saw a bunch of buttholes online basically expressing and trying to influence the conversation on social media by saying that, you know, good for you, Frank. He would never, you know, he hates these corrupt cops, and like kind of taking this stance as almost like, hey, we got what we wanted out of this character in this show. And as I pointed out, and this was before these comments came out here from Bernthal, you know, if you really knew what the other version of the show was, which they all do, they're just so bad faith they acted like they don't. If you knew what the old version of the show was, and you paid attention to the dialogue given from Bernthal, it was pretty fucking obvious that he was not going to play ball with this idea of denigrating the idea of officers or you know, blue-collar, military-esque people finding a kinship with Frank. You could just tell by the language. Instead of saying, you know, cops, this, that, second, and third, it was always fanboys, etc. Even the way that he talks about it, he's not besmirching them for their service. He's besmirching them for being psychos and whatnot, right? So, anyway, this still wasn't crystal clear for some motherfuckers online. So the man himself came out and gave some comments, and I'd like to play those comments for you right now.
The Marine Corps and that community for helping me on this journey, helping me write, helping me find this character. Some of the best people that we have in this country have worn that Punisher skull in their body armor when they've taken that you know, that unbelievable walk into danger to stand up for our country. That's something that I take enormously seriously. I make the show for them. I make the show with them, and yeah, it's I just really want to get it right.
No, you got it right. So I
Oh
just want
boy,
to say thank you.
I appreciate the Marine Corps and that
Let's listen to it
community
again.
for helping me on this journey, helping me write, helping me find this character. Some of the best people that we have in this country have worn that Punisher skull in their body armor when they've taken that that unbelievable walk into danger to stand up for our country. That's something that I take enormously seriously. I make the show for them. I make the show with them, and it's I'm just.
So I don't think he could have made it any more clear, where he stands, how he feels about those people, what he's trying to accomplish. And I don't think this was rude or out of pocket. I mean, frankly, I'm being so much more rude about it than he is, because I don't give a fuck. But, look, at the end of the day, I really respect not only these comments coming out and being crystal clear, but I got to say, I respect his unwillingness to bend. Now, this takes us into another conversation about the content of Born Again in general, because of course, this is a show that had this big creative overhaul. This was put in the Hollywood trades. They're discussing the idea that the show doesn't work. They sat down and watched it and all this creative change, et cetera, et cetera. Well, to me, when I looked at the show, I didn't feel like there was quality present to justify the overhaul. What I mean is, if it was the case that the first version of the show was goobly glob and all of the changes were made to make it so much better, I don't actually see the level of quality in the final product that would warrant that. And it just always felt a little sus, where I was like, really? They really creative. This is what we got in the creative overhaul. And what I said, I started saying this a couple of weeks before the finale, but it was super clear to me after the finale. This show was not creatively overhauled because of that. This show was creatively overhauled because it was so aggressively political. It had Punisher attacking corrupt cops. It had the mayor being this like crazy allegory for like Trump and Republicans and all this sort of stuff. It was like the worst version of what people call like the woke Marvel or like identity politics Marvel or whatnot. It was like the worst version of that. Like so much so that it's almost head scratching, like why and how they would have thought this was good in any way. But especially because of what we know from, Jon saying no to the show, these comments here. I mean, guys, I just really strongly feel that is what happened. Two things with this. On the one hand, right, it's kind of like it really feels bad, frankly. It really feels bad because it's like, dude, y'all kind of played us. Y'all kind of lied to us. And honestly, you did this with Captain America Brave New World, and you did it with the Daredevil show. What I mean is, like, you made this shit when you thought you could be aggressively political and, like, people wouldn't get butthurt about it or whatever. And honestly, people just don't want to be patronized. They just want to be entertained. It's not even about the issues. It's about, like, how dare you really is, like, the energy that I think is out there, right? And the studio spent hundreds of millions of dollars to remove all the flagrant shit and leave us with a shell of a product that, like, I cannot cheer for. I cannot cheer for Brave New World. I cannot cheer for this Daredevil show. I think they're trash, both of them. And look, am I going a little harder than most people? Sure. I mean, I just have different sensibilities. I get really bothered when a thing isn't crispy, So, maybe I'm getting caught up on it a little bit. Maybe I'm overreacting a bit, but that's just how I honestly feel. I cannot cheer for these shows, okay? So it's like wag of the finger, how dare you? But here's the other side of it. And I think that you also have to be fair. You can't just get mad about how it ended up, because ultimately, even though I think it should have been handled much better, I'm glad they are making these changes. I am glad they are making these changes. I'm glad at some fucking point they looked at what's going on and they were like, yeah, we're being a little ridiculous, to be honest. And this shit isn't going to fly. So, look, I think we're still in a place with Marvel where there is a lot of like weird shit going on, and there's still, there's obviously still going to be like politically leaning things or left leaning things or whatever, however you want to frame it. You want to call it woke, whatever. I get it. There's still going to be stuff like that. By the way, there was always stuff like that. I was just watching Lazarus last night. I love this anime. And there's a character, there's a trans character. You know what I mean? In like the third episode. And I know for some people they're going to be like, and like, whatever. But for me, I was just like, okay, it is what it is. It doesn't actually even bother me that much. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, that's a cool character, interesting thing they did there. And I still love the thing. I think it's stylish. I bring that up to say, I do think there are things more important substantively of the entertainment than just the little things that are going to pop up that are going to piss people off. It's more the case that when you start to feel like there's nothing to cheer for, like you're being disrespected and preached to at the same time, it creates like a really toxic feeling in the fandom, right? And I think that's what Marvel is doing. That's the path that they were on. So it will still have stuff in it. It's not like they're going to go, it's not like the fanboy dream of like fucking Luke Skywalker taking Trenbolone injections, you know what I mean? Jacked to the gills like his original action figure was. And, all of that. We're not going into that, nor should we. But it does feel like Marvel has pivoted, and frankly, Star Wars has pivoted, possibly against their own. Like Kathy's like screaming in the sky, but like there's a lot of white dudes making announcements and celebrations. You know what I mean? They're marketing around a lot of white dudes, which I'm sure she absolutely hates. So I bring all of this up to say, I think it's okay to criticize them for the real hatchet hack job way that they removed this, and yet still praise them and kind of say, yes, you did do the right thing here by removing that stuff in general. Like, I strongly feel that you need to get that shit out of there. You need to at least chop it by 90%. That's what I would do. And so I think these comments from Bernthal just crystallize all of that conversation. We've been talking about this a little bit here, a little bit there for weeks. And look, at the end of the day, is this, for some people, this is maybe an uncomfortable conversation or whatever. And by the way, there are some people out there that are genuinely going to be mad that this direction is happening. And my advice is to just ignore them. They really don't matter. Like, let them scream into the void. They didn't show up for Daredevil. They didn't show up for Brave New World. They didn't show up for the Marvels. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, honestly. And you would make a mistake by getting in a fight or an argument with these people, or like trying to shove them down. Like, no, just like enjoy the fact that they lost and that things are going in a better direction. It's just the pendulum swinging back to more of a regular place. And the pendulum always swings, we could get to a point where we're like, damn, even I'm sick of these straight white dudes. What the fuck? And then when we need to, swing back, it's all good. But we are in a phase right now where things are swinging. I think swinging at it like a really good time, because I think Doomsday and I think Secret Wars, I think the levels of testosterone in those movies will be very high, which is good. Perhaps even higher than they were in Infinity War and Endgame, which could be interesting, because in some ways, dirty little secret, the Russos actually started some of this shit. Like they did. Bitch Boy Thor, Bitch Boy Hulk. Yeah. So, just kind of wanted to bring this up. I think it's a piece with Jon. A lot of people are going to share this and have different opinions about it, this, that, second, and third. But I just wanted to express honestly what I think is going on. This is in a way, of course, this is my lensing of it. This is what I think is going on. So it's not like I 100% know this. I have heard that Feige has literally told people at Marvel, we tried that stuff. It didn't work. We're not doing it anymore. And you know exactly what stuff I'm talking about. That's not confirmed. It's just what I heard. So I think good times are coming. Thanks for watching, and if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.